Have you ever walked into a shelter and seen hundreds of animals in those cold concrete cages? Now imagine yourself getting one of those animals and being the joy in their lives. Adoption is a very viable option for many reasons, so adopt, do not shop. On average, 7.6 million animals end up in shelters each year. Most of the time, it's not even their fault. Of those 7.6 million, 2.7 million of them are euthanized because of overpopulation. This is a rising problem in the world and it needs to be put to an end. Now, we're getting to the age where we'll be moving out soon and getting a residence of our own, and I'm guessing, but most of you will probably want a pet in the near future. Did you know that 70% of families have a pet? Okay, sorry. 70% of families have a pet. Most own a dog, with cats coming in second. Animals fill a void for people who cannot otherwise be happy, which includes single people, people with disabilities, and they help with people in workforces. Owning a pet is a big responsibility that comes with consequences if you neglect them. Today I will give you information about animals in shelters, why they end up there, and information on adoption centers. According to Katie McDowell and the Dominion Post, 3.3 million dogs end up in shelters and most don't ever come out. They usually don't end up there on their own. Caprice is from the Newcastle Herald says they end up there because their owners usually don't have time for them, they can't afford them, or their living situation doesn't allow them to have pets. Many pets have a lot of love, but no one to give it to. Like I said above, 7.6 million animals end up in shelters each year. Only a little over 700,000 of them are returned to their families. Most spend the rest of their lives in the shelter. For shelters, because they are over capacity, they can be in a hurry to find a home for the pets. This can result in wrong pairings because they usually have no history on the animals. Another con to having too many animals in a shelter is that they are not always on their best behavior because of the confined spaces and so many animals around them. Now that I've told you some information about animals in shelters, I'll tell you why they end up there. Usually, it is not their fault. It's the owner that usually caused them to end up there. If it's a behavioral issue, it's usually how the previous owner handled them, like dogs that are trained to be fighting dogs. Like the misconception on pit bulls. Pit bulls actually used to be called nanny dogs because of their gentleness. But people started taking advantage of them and training them to be fighting dogs, so they are now seen as the most aggressive type of dog. Other times, people just don't have the supplies or time to take care of an animal, so they are forced to put them up or just abandon them. So pets take a lot of time and money to take care of them, so if they don't have those resources, then it can create a headache for the owner. Some people end up moving and their residence does not allow them to have a pet, and if they're tight on money and they can't find anywhere else, then they'll just have to be forced to give them up. Now we'll talk about some breeding mills. Sharon L. Peters for USA Today says the emotional and physical scars that breed puppies have, or that puppies in breeding mills have, are still there after they are even adopted and put into a loving home. I know this because my grandpa rescued a dog from a breeding shelter or breeding mill. Her name is Daisy. She was very skittish when they first got her. She would not even let people close to her, let alone touch her. But within the 3 years that my grandparents have had her, she's gotten progressively better. Now she still doesn't really let people around her except for my grandma and grandpa, but I can see that she loves them and she's really trying to get better. In another article by Sharon L. Peters for USA Today, mills keep dogs in isolated cages and usually the dogs are malnourished, so they really don't take care of them very well. This leads to PTSD in dogs or animals, whatever. PTSD includes skittishness, like I said about Daisy, shaking, urination in fear, or in extreme cases, seizures. After the dogs don't produce any more large litters of puppies, or they are of no use, they will kill them. This is purely a money-making operation, and they really do not care about the health or welfare of their product. Now that I've told you why they end up there and some information on breeding mills, I will give you some information on what adoption centers are. First, let's define an adoption center. It can be a local pound that is funded by tax dollars, or different, such as a rescue facility funded by generous donations. Pounds provide many options for adopting a pet. We have the animal shelter out by the police department, and then the Humane Society over by the for adoptions or for shelters, they create, or they are very, they're very, I gotta think just a second. Adoption centers make it easier to adopt pets, like right there, then and there, rather than for a different adoption center with like a rescue facility. They usually spend more time with you, that you have to come back. You have to keep coming back to the place to visit with the animal, and the adoption process takes longer when you are trying to adopt someone from a rescue facility. Today I provided you information about how animals in shelters, why they end up there, and some information on breeding mills, and then some information about rescue facilities throughout the world. So I ask you to adopt and not shop. Thank you.
7:30.